everyone. Hi there. My name is Hannah Lideker, and I am the brand and social media manager here at iSolved. I have two wonderful guests I am joined with today, and I will let them do the introductions themselves. I'll go start with Amy.
Well, thank you so much, Hannah. I really appreciate it. My name is Amy Mosier. I'm the Chief People Officer at iSolved. Been around, HR for 25 years. Very glad to have landed here at iSolved over the last 2.5 years. We've made some incredible changes and implemented some really amazing things. Couldn't be more excited about iSolved as a business, as you know, HCM benefit services and HR services business that really tracks the employee experience. And that's what we're all about over here at iSolved. So happy to talk about some of those topics today with Ben.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, everybody. I'm Ben Eubanks. I'm the Chief Research Officer at Lighthouse Research and Advisory. I spend my days doing two kinds of research. So keeping track of the technologies and tools that are out there to help us serve our people better, including iSolved and some of the others. And the other side of the research is on trends, best practices, what's happening, what decisions we're making as talent leaders, as business leaders that affect the people. And so it's so much fun for me because I started out my career in HR and then now transitioned over to using the data to help serve leaders just like all of you that are listening in right now to take care of your people, to meet the needs of the business, and to hopefully do both at the same time.
Yeah. Did you want to plug your book as well, Ben?
I'm terrible at that, by the way. I'm terrible at promoting myself. So I've written a book called Artificial Intelligence for HR, which is kind of the core of the conversation today. We're going to dive into some of those things. And it's funny because when I wrote the book, I had gone through, had talked all about all these kinds of technologies and tools, and we'll get into some of the things today that they can do and how they can help us. And I felt very uneasy, frankly, when I'd written it. And so the last chapter in the book is all about how we take these things and then adapt that and focus on the stuff that we really are excited about, the things that drew us into HR in the first place.
Yes.
And so it's all about the human side of work and why that matters. So it may sound like a textbook, Artificial Intelligence for HR, but it's really about making work more human, making it more connected to the things that we all care about.
Yeah, I actually read your book, my personal signed copy of your book, and I actually found it incredibly practical. And I feel like from a business savvy perspective, it really resonates, especially with what we're going to go over today.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, I will go ahead and say that my book is not signed, so I will put your way, Ben, to get a little autograph on there.
We'll make that happen for you.
Next time. I know. So I promised an insightful conversation. I feel like I have the dynamic duo here. Ben, you quite literally wrote the book on AI and HR. So I'm excited to kind of dive into things and learn how we can use AI in the world of HR and kind of the benefits that come along with it. So let's get started if you don't mind. So first up, I'm actually going to hit Amy for this one. So I know that DEI&B is actually a big priority for you and for iSolved. And I just wanted to see what you think about different ways you've seen AI help move the needle for companies to be more diverse in the workplace.
Right. One of my top priorities as the CPO really is inclusion, just across the board. In this day and age, diversity in the workplace, it's not enough, right? It can't just be kind of that buzzword. You've really got to understand who your employees are and create belonging kind of across the board. And the best way to do that, I think, is by first taking a look at the data. AI tech can be a really key player in identifying what your DEI&B roadmap is going to look like. And I feel like HR managers can really finally get kind of an unbiased and holistic view into their employees by really just looking at the data. And it can help you get a sense of really those areas of opportunity within your business. And once you understand the demographics of your business and what you look like from a demographic perspective, your goals will resonate more clearly, right? As you march toward a more inclusive and more belonging workforce, I think.
Every time Amy talks, okay, all of you out there, by the way, I'm always just a bit starstruck when I get to talk to Amy because she's incredible. And every time she shares, like, oh, that's another new idea. That's something new and different. Or I'm taking notes over here I am taking notes over here, actually, literally, on things you're sharing. So I'll add some comments around that. One of the things that this comes back to, and all of us that have worked in HR know the most important thing you can do is know your people. And so some of the tools can help us to know them at a deeper level than we're able to just in those passing conversations in the hallway or the virtual conversations, the Zoom calls, things that we have now. the research shows that even if I tried really hard, and I have had positions in HR where I've tried really hard to know as much about as many people as I could, right? I would know the names of the people. I would know the names of their spouse. I would know the names of their kids. I would know, oh yeah, you know, your wife just had that surgery. Like, I would know all those things that I could to try to create those connection points for people. And yet there's a finite amount of times we can do that, and it just starts getting blurry and really difficult. And the benefit of technology is it can help us to scale those things up, not just to know all the things about the people, because that's in a creepy way, right? But to say, hey, here's a point where you might need to step in and help them. This person is doing a lot of searching for things on bereavement leave, right? Maybe they had something happen in their family. And one of the things that I've been excited to watch, especially in the last year or two, is that these tools are now getting smart enough to kind of nudge us in the moment to say, hey, check this out. Hey, here's something you might have missed. It could be on the data side. Hey, here's a trend that's sort of increasing. And if you don't address it, you know, you're going to have 20% of your women are going to leave in the workforce in the next year and a half if you don't address whatever thing's driving them out, right? Some a nudge like that. But other times it's a, hey, you're building a hiring slate. Do you have someone that's diverse in this slate that you want to make sure that you're accurately representing what the workforce outside your business looks like? This shouldn't all look the same when we're passing this forward to the hiring manager to review. So like all those little nudges and things, it's not about taking over the work we're doing. It's not about eliminating things that we're touching. But Amy, you know this, like as hard as we try, right? And I love the ISOL superhero, like people heroes kind of thing, right? We want to be heroes, and yet we can't do all the things all the time. Yeah. And so if there's something that's, if any of us had, right, a great person, great assistant behind our shoulder saying, hey, check this, look at that, all of us probably would raise our hand and say, yes, sign me up right away. And that's how I see AI really playing a role in the work that we do day to day.
Agreed. You know, helping us to prioritize what's really important for our employee base, that's the key, right? Like we'll take whatever tools we can get to make our jobs just a little bit easier in that area and focus on really makes an impact on our organization.
Can I throw one more comment in, by the way? So
for sure.
I'm just going to ignore Hannah. Like she's not even here. Okay. Yes. I'm going to jump right in. One of the things that I hear every time I present on the topic, if I'm speaking about it, if I'm writing about it, the first thing people want to bring up though is, yeah, but what about bias? And so I will admit that absolutely some of the legacy approaches to using AI within HR, right, facial recognition and things like that, there's absolutely possibility and high probability of bias in that. But the kind of things we're talking about here are much less likely to be because number one, the outcome isn't, okay, go pick that. We're making a recommendation for the number one person to go and hire and ignore everything else. We're not getting to that level of decision making with this. Mm-hmm. It's really about helping to encourage us to think about things that are not always top of mind for us. They should be, but again, our hustle and bustle day to day, it's not always. And so I wanted to make sure and address that piece of it because I am a believer. I'm an optimist, right? But I'm also a skeptic at times because I keep hearing all the things. I see all the stories, good and bad. And I wanted to give everybody some encouragement that isn't something we're blindly glossing over because we believe that the tools can help us to make things better, to make things more equitable at work if we're using them the proper way.
Agreed.
Oh,
absolutely. Very powerful, isn't it, Hannah? Take it all in.
I don't have a microphone to drop, but I would do it, darn it.
I wish I had one. If I had my headphones in, I would drop my microphone of my headphones. I know that's great. I think another big part of this too is that we're also kind of shifting from the Great Resignation, and Amy, I think you've talked about this too before. Now we're kind of shifting into the Great re-engagement. And so I think that employers are starting to, kind of invest in their employees just to kind of continue to keep them engaged. Do y'all think that AI can play a role in that and keeping your employees invested and continue their learning and their development?
AI is definitely going to play a role in this. Neglecting your employees for their professional growth can negatively affect the business, but also just your hiring efforts, your retention efforts, and the power of those is really palpable. And it is so much more so now than it ever was before because we're still in the war for talent, even with the market shift. And using AI can really help us to invest in our employees in the areas where it means the most to them. Setting up your learning management systems with content and investing in content, for example, on things that employees want and they feel like they need, incredibly important. We want to make sure that any personal training, right, or personal resources that we can provide them with even very little investment is targeted in the right areas by utilizing that kind of data. And most importantly, I think AI, I think more than anything for me, really paves the way for those learning management systems, especially to be accessible to everyone. And because they're accessible to everyone, you're touching so much more from an investment perspective, right? It means more. You can spread it across more people, and using something like a learning management system to reinforce the knowledge that you gained from AI and addressing some of the opportunities that you have within your employee base is incredibly important. Because of that accessibility, you're starting to eliminate bias on the back end of this, right? Like, so for the accessibility of this information, right? You're not just targeting one audience, you're providing that information to everyone that you have within your employee base. And you're doing it in a very, for lack of a better word, a very accessible way, right? So you're helping to eliminate that bias that Ben was talking about earlier, as far as utilization of the data to provide opportunities to your employee base. So that's one area where I feel like we can immediately make an impact.
It's funny. I was gonna go 1, 2, 3, but I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1 on the points I was making as you were talking, because you talked about the accessibility and making this more equitable for people at work. So it's going to tie back to that previous conversation. One of the things that several different research studies, several different academic institutions, it's all out there. If you want to look at it, the research says that in general, women and minorities at work are less likely to advocate for themselves, less likely to raise their hand when the opening pops up, or they're more likely to disqualify themselves and say, oh, well, I don't meet every single thing on that list, so I probably shouldn't apply.
Yeah.
One of the things that excites me about some of these tools we're talking about, the algorithms can say, hey, by the way, women who are selected for this role, they have this training over here. Maybe you ought to go get that skill. Maybe you ought to go take that training. That's going to help you prepare yourself for that. And just like that, I was talking with the nudges on our end from an HR perspective a minute ago, the same thing applies here, where it's saying, hey, Amy, if you want next career step, I know you're exploring this thing here. You need to go and fill this gap that you have if you want to be competitive for that type of role. That kind of thing is incredible to me, because then it puts the power into the hands of every single person.
Yeah.
So in the perfect world of skittles and rainbows, every single person out there that's working today would have a manager that paid attention to them, that supported their career goals, that had a conversation about them of where they want to go.
Right.
And we don't live in that world, right? Managers are busy. Sometimes they don't know what to say. Sometimes they should not be in a management role, and we pick them because they've been around for a long time. We have nowhere else to put them, right? For any reason that's out there, these tools can help put that power. They can democratize those decisions, make career conversations about career development and learning something at a very human and personal level for every single person. And that encourages me so much. And Amy, this won't surprise you in the slightest, but in our new hiring data that just came out, we found that 8 out of 10 candidates want to hear about career development opportunities, not at their 6-month review, but before they ever select a job, because they're using that to sift back and forth between different offers. And this is one of the things that they look at, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's something we've implemented here at iSolve's career mapping for our candidate base. That they're coming in, our new hires as they're coming in, so they understand where the steps are, where they can go from a career development perspective, and then back ending that with that learning management accessibility, and then accessibility into a lot of different areas for opportunity across the business. But I couldn't agree more.
What's wild is anyone who sees that feels like, oh,
yeah,
it is for me. This is for me. And yet you're like, we're just doing this to solve a problem. We're doing this. Everybody needs it. But when you see that from their perspective, like, wow, they did this for me. And
agreed.
That very personalized, individualized feeling of that you're recreating. I know it's a feeling, right? And we're stats and data lovers over here at HR, right? I hope anyway.
I am.
Yeah, we'll take it. It gives that feeling, but I'll tell you that it's hard to quantify feeling sometimes. But I'll tell you one thing really quickly that just stuck with me. One of the quotes in the book that has stuck with me all these years is someone's trying to figure out, like, how do people feel about some of these interactions with different tools and bots and all these other kinds of things that they could interact with these different algorithms. Do they really like it or not? And I'll admit, the first time I heard about this kind of stuff, I was a little bit skeptical. And here the book, right? So I've obviously overcome that. But the thing that got me was this person said, when we have candidates interacting with the bot to work for our company, they're interacting with this bot to take their information and to understand and help them figure out what job they're suited for. At the end of that conversation, 75% of those candidates say thank you to the bot, knowing full well it's not a human. Like, well, it's hard to quantify that feeling, but I know many of us as employers struggle with creating a hiring process that people enjoy, creating a process that gets high throughput, making sure every candidate feels listened to in that process. Most of us won't finish the application, want to throw our computer out the window, So being able to say they feel like saying thank you, they feel appreciative, that's a very different approach, and something that could feel like it's at arm's length is actually bringing them closer, making them feel more heard and listened to, as you were talking about, Amy.
I love that statistic because it's absolutely true. Not only do I do it with our own conversational virtual assistant, which we're going to talk about, I think, in a moment, but with other bots that you run it, like Staples Online, right? Like Amazon, I will very often do that myself. And so that comment really resonated with me. Clearly, I was getting a great customer experience. So let's try and provide that same thing to our employee base from an employee experience perspective.
Oh, goodness. I love it.
I'm relating to this on such a great level. I mean, I can't say her name because she's right next to me. That starts with an A and so with another A. I think to her all the time. She'll tell me the weather, and I'm like, "Thank you so much." And like, she's not responding to me, but it's providing kind of that human aspect of everything. I feel like into the AI world, so that's great.
Yes. We don't have to be automatons ourselves.
Yeah,
right? We're interacting with the tools and everything else. And again, that's what I said a minute ago. I got to that when I finished the book as the publisher had asked for it. I'm like, I would never be okay with someone reading this the way it is now, the way it ends.
Yeah.
It's got to end with some hope and some encouragement that the work we're doing matters and the work we're doing has a future, and that there are not just a Pollyanna, like, let's hope that things don't turn bad, but no, based on the actual data. When we look at history, when that wave of automation passes by, the work that's left behind is more human focused than ever before. Well, guess what? We're the people. We are the human focused function in the business. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us in the future. Yes, to streamline some things we're doing. Let's get away from the paper. Lord help us all, right? Get away from some of those kind of things we've been doing for a long time, but really get into serving our people in the way we always wanted to, and we couldn't quite get to with all the busy work and everything else.
Yeah. Still really exciting for me because it's still underutilized. So I'm certainly on the forefront of accepting the opportunity to utilize technology like this to enhance the employee experience. Mm-hmm. And you're not looking at a stronger advocate, right? I'm all about that. But I'm also a people person, right? To your point. And I think anyone that would describe my influence would be, it's all about culture. It's all about the people, huge employee advocate, certainly a business advocate as well. But there are ways that you can take what is perceived to be a less people-focused effort, right? Like replacing people from like an AI bot perspective into enhancing the people experience, right? It can be done, and it is being done. And Hannah, I'd love to talk about how we're doing it here at iSolve.
I know. What a good segue. Like those plans. So we've actually, we've recently rolled out our iSolve conversational virtual assistant. And I know that this new tool is going to help alleviate kind of a lot of that back end and that kind of manual labor that a lot of HR leaders are facing right now. So Amy, do you mind just kind of shedding about how you see kind of tools like this helping these just kind of everyday HR admin duties and how?
Yeah. Well, if you've ever been an HR person, you know that there's 20 questions that get asked over and over and over, day after day after day, that you're answering repeatedly. You maybe have a microsite that you've set up with a FAQ. Not everybody clicks on it, right? We've rolled out our conversational virtual assistant specifically tied to the People Cloud, the iSolve People Cloud, and we've uploaded those. It ends up being 100 questions. It's a lot. But the accessibility of this information is so much more clear for the employee base. They're not afraid. We're now conditioned to go, yes, I have a question. Here's my question, and have it pop up, right? And have that accessibility. And I think translating that into an employee engagement function, an HCM system, has been an eye opener for us. We can be ready with questions and where to send people and links to different things in a moment. It can be in the middle of the night, right? They don't have to wait for their HR business partner to wake up in the morning to ask them the question or get back to their email. The accessibility of this thing is amazing. The consistency of data is incredible. So I couldn't recommend it more. If you have the ability to roll something like this out from an HR administrative perspective, it's huge. But from an employee experience perspective, it's even bigger. So we can answer more questions faster, more fairly than we ever have been able to before. And it's really just by funneling knowledge that we already have through a process, making it accessible to our employee base. And so it becomes an extension of us as an HR team, and it contributes to our culture, to improving our employee experience and our culture. So I've not thought about it as depersonalizing. I've actually thought of it as an enhancement because of that. And we did our own study, Ben. I know you love data. And one of the statistics that I thought you might like on this is that 71% of full-time employees said they're willing to use the conversational assistant to accomplish just HR tasks.
Yes.
And, that's an opportunity, right? Are 71% of employees asking you questions every day, every week, every month, every year? Probably. And to be able to make an impact with that huge of a portion of the population so quickly with something so, use a layman term, simple as a conversational assistant, not that it was simple to implement, and create, right? But it's because it's so comprehensive. These types of apps, we're seeing more Teams, you're using Teams or Zoom or whatever it is that you're using, Slack, in a very similar way, and you're doing polls via it, and you're providing, the FAQ kind of information that way as well. But this connection to HCM, it also allows us to track, so we're getting more data from utilizing these types of systems, because you're tracking what people are asking most. And let's say it's in relation to an issue that you have, right, across the board, or a cultural issue or a technical issue or an HR policy opportunity. You can gather data so much more, real-time data on what's really going on. Is everybody asking about PTO right now, right? Is everybody asking about sick time right now? Are we getting lots of questions about how to see, the group calendar in iSolved that shows how everybody's off, right? Are we getting a lot of mental health requests? What's your mental health benefit? So you can really get a very quick real-time gauge utilizing these on what your employees need as well.
I'm thinking it takes a true hardcore HR person to say policy opportunity. Hey, we'll take it, right?
Welcome to our world, Ben. Welcome.
I should have signed your book with "Watch out for policy opportunities," and here we go. All kidding aside, there's a couple things in there that you said were so important, and I don't want the audience to miss them. You talked about timing. There's actually a really interesting case study that I've shared in the book that talks about when people interact with the bot, and employers think, oh, it's just going to help Amy while she's working to focus on this thing, so that the bot's handling the other thing, and that does happen. But depending on the company, depending on the workforce and their schedule and all the other things, as much as 25% of the questions that come in could come in when Amy is snoozing, or when Amy is, I don't know what Amy does when she's not working, but when Amy's not working,
paragliding.
Yes, paragliding. There we go. When she's not in the office, though, those questions still get an answer. The people still get the help they need. They still get resolution. And if it's something that requires a follow-up, when they follow up with Amy, it's, hey, I checked the policy out. It says this. I want to confirm that. Instead of it being, hey, what's the answer to this? Being very open-ended and being very uncertain. They already have a little bit of information, and they're ready to just get that confirmation. They're good to go. Number two on that, we actually did a study recently, dueling stats here. Ready? Here we go. We did a study recently. We found that when people want to access tools like this at work, right? You mentioned mental health questions, things like that. If they want to access tools like that at work, the most important things for them, the things they rank higher than everything else, are, I want it to be confidential and I want to be able to access it anywhere. I don't want to have to walk down to HR's office and knock on the door and say, hey, I've got a question about whatever, whether it's innocuous or it's serious, because everybody's like, you see that? Hannah just went to HR. She's talking to Amy about something. I don't know what it is, but I mean, her boss came in the other day, so maybe Hannah's on her way out. Like, who knows what it is? Where people talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, but being able to handle those things, sorry, Hannah, you're under the bus. They get to handle those questions and the things that they're concerned with, the things that are top of mind, whether it's just a passing, oh, I'm kind of curious. Okay, good. Or it's a very serious example, like I gave earlier. What's our bereavement policy? You know, I had a death in the family. We had something else I got to worry about. In the moment, they can get that very surface level answer that gets them to where they need to go. And in the cases where they need to go deeper, Amy, team, right? Everyone's there saying, hey, we're here for you. We're right here to help you with whatever you need beyond that. But for most people, that first answer is all they need, and they're clear to get back to work or do whatever they need to do, whatever decision they need to make. And so I love this because it speeds up the time to decisions. It, as you said, it helps us as an HR community to spend our time on the things that matter most, the things that we care most about. Not one of us, I'm watching you, all of you out there in internet land, not one of us would say, yes, the reason I got into this is because I want to answer that question about how to change 401k deferrals for the 17th time. None of us got into HR for that reason, right? Got into this to serve people well. And those kinds of things are part of the job, absolutely. But if we can hand that off and then spend time with that person who's having a tough time, needs some coaching, or that leader who needs some development, or whatever other use case is the higher use of our time, that's a great win for everybody, including that person who got a quick and consistent answer, as you pointed out, Amy.
Yeah, love it.
Oh. When I say I promised it a good conversation, I mean, all I need is a camera, we're good. Like, ooh.
Amy's got it. I'm along for the ride.
No, that is not the case, Ben. You know it. You know it.
I feel like this is a great. Ben, I've skimmed through. I will read it. I promise I'll read the whole entire thing. But I've skimmed through.
Can't sign it till you read it.
I know. If you, that's a good thing. You know, when I was kind of skimming through that, and I know through conversations we had at SHRM recently too, I feel like this has just been a great conversation. I feel like you brought your book to life, and I feel like I've just been able to learn so much because of this.
Well, thank you for the chance to share. It is my belief that we can do this well, right? We can use these tools to serve people well, and that's the opportunity we have as HR leaders.
Agreed. I think you've frozen there, Hannah, but we can hear you.
Connection, and it might just be me.
It's just you. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you and your ability to facilitate this conversation.
Oh, goodness.
So
we love you, Hannah. You can't hear it. Oh, she won't even hear it till later. Anyway.
Barring Hannah getting back online, thanks so much to everybody who was able to join us today. Ben?
Absolutely. This is a fun opportunity. As I said, I wasn't kidding earlier. Any chance to chat with you is always a good one. I appreciate you, the work that you are doing and the work that the iSolve team is doing to not just to educate the space, but to serve them well, right? Using the tools, using the technology, but also using just a lot of encouragement for the HR community right now that the work they're doing is meaningful and has a lot of purpose. I've been watching online, by the way, following the team as they've been doing the customer events and stuff like that, the road shows, the road trip, maybe, who knows? But watching those things and seeing them serve people well, that's just been so much fun to see that, because people need that encouragement, especially now that the work we're doing matters.
Thank you so much, Ben. And likewise, by the way, you're doing some incredible work, and you've been so supportive of iSolve and what we're trying to accomplish and achieve here. And hey, if you're interested in iSolve or you're a client, feel free to join us on the roadshow. We'll be at a place near you very soon. We seem to be everywhere these days. So come on by. You're welcome. But Ben, thank you again. Really appreciate you joining me today. And have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.